Krishna Consciousness was doing that magazine article. We went to the New York Temple, and I was immediately attracted. This is our first arati ceremony. Somehow or other, I had this attraction to Lord Jagannath Subhadra Baladev. You can see at the top. And but Vishaka she wrote the article, I did the pictures. She was an atheist. She wasn't attracted at all. That played out in an interesting way later on. We'll talk about that. This is the magazine. So I had to do a master's thesis in photography. So I said, let me go to India and meet Prabhupada. And that was when Prabhupada took his World Sankirtan party to back to India. It was the first time he took a large group of Westerners back, and it really caused a sensation. The Indians were thrilled to see the white Westerners come back to India after hundreds of years of subjugation by the Muslims, by the British, trying to suppress their culture. To see Vaishnavas coming to their shore preaching Krishna consciousness was just so fulfilling and exciting. Do you understand me okay? Yeah, very basic, echoey. So these are a few of the engagements that Prabhupada led in the early days in Mumbai. This is really a representation of prediction of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that the Harinam movement would spread all over the world, and also there would be Western Vaishnavas, and all different races would come together under the banner of Harinam. So this is Tamal Krishna Goswami on the left, Dinanath Prabhu in the middle, Bhanu Swami on the right, all different nationalities. So Prabhupada's strategy was also brilliant in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness. He immediately had programs in all the big cities of India. And when devotees would travel on train, they would stop at once the train stopped at every station, they would jump off and have Harinam. And immediately hundreds of people would gather. So this is an immediate reaction all over India. Everybody very quickly knew about the arrival of the Western Vaishnava. And this is the first town I visited where I met Prabhupada. This is Surat, Gujarat. And this is yours truly. Mustache and long hair. Prabhupada, nobody knew I was coming. I just showed up. And it was a photographer's dream, taking pictures for my master's thesis. When I got there, I showed Prabhupada the magazine article, and he was very happy. If I could join the party, take my pictures and do my master's thesis. And Prabhupada's reply was a little startling. He said, "Are you going to become a devotee?" And I couldn't imagine wearing the robes and shaving the head, so I said, "I don't think so, Prabhupada." Then he said, "Then you cannot stay." So they kindly put me up, the devotees put me up that night. I had no place to stay. I didn't know anyone. And the next morning I got up and nobody said anything, and Prabhupada didn't say anything. I stayed for 2 months. So that was a confirmation that Prabhupada knew my heart and mind. He knew that I had some attraction for Krishna consciousness. He kindly allowed me to stay, but that was quite a prophetic statement, because if we don't become devotees, we can't remain amongst devotees. And even if we physically remain amongst, try to associate, we're not advancing in Krishna consciousness, eventually that won't last. So Prabhupada gave a great, lessons with any instruction he gave. There are always lessons behind that. The second night I was there, Prabhupada had this huge, the townspeople arranged this huge program. You can see in the back, thousands of people. There is some, Prabhu, there's something on the screen here. Is that showing up? No? Okay. Sorry. I don't care. It's not showing up. No. So every day the devotees would have Harinam through the streets of the city. And in the newspaper, they would announce which part of the city that the devotees would arrive at. And the residents would decorate that part of the city. The whole town was, on fire in terms of receiving devotees and enthusiasm for Harinam and Krishna consciousness was amazing. Surat is the town of devotees, and of course, the whole of India. You can see their enthusiasm for greeting the Harinam party. We could not go more than a few yards before we stopped, and people greeted us, put garlands and sandalwood paste, and arti to the Harinam party. This is Malati Devi. So the color pictures here were taken from little film frames. There's 24 frames a second in a movie. So we went through some of these early films and took pictures from the film frame. That's Srila Prabhupada in the back leading the Boy Scouts in Harinam. You can see that little camera on his wrist. That's a movie camera. We're very happy he took movies back at that time. Prabhupada was tireless. He would go to 3 or 4 engagements per day preaching. At that time, there were very few Indian followers, maybe 5 or 6. And the devotees from the West were about 25 or 30. This is Mangal Arati in Srila Prabhupada's room. It's Yamuna Devi leading the kirtan. Prabhupada would very often ask her to lead the kirtan. We know she had a beautiful voice, and she recorded that Hare Krishna mantra record with George Harrison in London. This man on the very right wearing the Gandhi cap, he was our host, Mr. Jerrywalla. And Mr. Jerrywalla was just opened his house. He had, I think, a 4-story house housing all the devotees, myself, and Prabhupada. When we were leaving, Mr. Jerrywalla came and paid obeisances and begged forgiveness for any offenses. Prabhupada was very moved by that. He said, "This is a Vaishnava." Actually, Mr. Jerrywalla shed some tears at the end. He was very emotional. He said, "Please forgive my offenses." He didn't commit any offense, rather we committed offenses, not knowing the culture, and very young. We were very young at that time. I was 27 years old. I was considered an elder. Prabhupada then took us to the Kumbh Mela in 1971 in Allahabad. Many familiar faces here. Madhavisa Prabhu on the left, Krishna Goswami, his wife Madhuri Devi in the back, Aravinda with a blanket over his head. Prabhupada, Chitananda Swami, and the Gira Swami also with a blanket. See, and then Yamuna Devi and Hansaduta Prabhu. So this man every day would somehow find Prabhupada, and when he met Prabhupada, he would throw himself on the ground and then get up and start dancing in ecstasy. Prabhupada liked him very much. This is little Saraswati on Shamsundar Prabhu's shoulder. Saraswati was 3 years old at that time. Whenever there was kirtan, she would raise her arms and dance. She created a big sensation amongst the crowds. So Prabhupada stayed with us. He could have stayed in Allahabad. He had godbrothers there at the Gaudiya Math. He could have stayed in a hotel, but he chose to stay with his devotees. And it's very cold, and we were all living in tents. And one day Prabhupada took us to the Gaudiya Math by rickshaw. One of my favorite pictures of Prabhupada, like the commanding generals of Lord Chaitanya's army, leading us by rickshaw. This is the Sri Rupa Gaudiya Math, where Prabhupada spent many years as a grihastha with his pharmaceutical business. We're in Benares now, and Prabhupada was, everywhere Prabhupada went, he was greeted very royally. And before some people or some devotees, we may think that Prabhupada was not so successful before he came to America, but he was very successful in cultivating the upper class people, the wealthy people, the influential people of India. Whenever Prabhupada visited any city, he was royally welcomed. Here he's taken through a cart in Benares, drawn by white horses. There's Tripataka Swami in the lower left. And this is the time, this is the festival when Lord Chaitanya met Rupa Goswami, instructed him in Benares. Then Prabhupada took us back to Mumbai. And there was the first Cross Maidan festival. Huge, huge crowds. Prabhupada had these big festivals in all the major cities, Calcutta, Delhi, and so forth. So each night, at least 20,000 people would gather. This was in the heart of Bombay. And this was the time that Srila Prabhupada called that Western sadhu from the very back of the audience to come sit next to him on stage. And that was, of course, Radhanath Swami, became Radhanath Swami. So Prabhupada, this was his mystic potency that Krishna would give him intelligence to do everything perfectly, to find, pick devotees out of an audience of 20,000 people. Well, actually, there were two other devotees who came from that festival. One was Lokanath Swami, the other was Dadiharta Prabhu from Canada. Dadiharta Prabhu remembers listening to Prabhupada's lectures, but he couldn't understand very much. But he said that one thing came through, and that was the word surrender. And eventually he did. So the last night on stage, there was a wedding. And this is Bhagavan Prabhu and his wife from Australia. Bhagavan Prabhu was from Sweden. And the crowd just loved this. They just loved to see this wedding on stage. And Prabhupada gave a little talk, and afterward he said, "This is the real United Nations." When he said that, the whole crowd cheered, Haribol. This is Subal Swami doing the ceremony, the fire sacrifice. And in the upper left corner, you'll see that Western sadhu, Radhanath Swami, with long hair. Can you make that out? It's very blurry. But he's in the upper left corner. You're not watching. One of my favorite pictures of Prabhupada. That's one of these festivals, just so happy to be spreading the message of Krishna consciousness to the Indian people. So back in America, Jean, my girlfriend, was wondering what happened to John. So she decided to come to India to meet me. And she brought a book with her that she published as a sophomore in college. And she showed that book to Prabhupada. Prabhupada liked it very much. He was especially interested in the quality of the book, the printing. Of course, Prabhupada was a publisher printing his own books. So we asked Prabhupada at that time, when we met him, we'd like to do another photographic essay on an Indian village. But we didn't know where to go. We asked Prabhupada, where should we go? Prabhupada said, wherever you go, you'll get your camera stolen and they will cheat you. So best to go to Vrindavan. Before we went to Vrindavan, we took our art photographs in and around Bombay. And first, before we went to Vrindavan, we went to Nepal and hiked up to 10,000 feet in a beautiful valley. And I brought one book with me, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And there, we spent 5 days in this little cabin, deserted cabin. And there, Jean read the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first time in her life that she felt some intrigue, some interest in Krishna consciousness by reading the Bhagavad Gita. We came back down to Vrindavan, and Jean was especially interested in photographing the widows. Every day in the temple, there would be hundreds of widows in different places, different temples around Vrindavan, chanting Hare Krishna. So that really melted her heart. She felt very some attachment to the chanting through those widows. But while in Vrindavan, we met Jamuna Devi and Gurudas. They invited us to come to Calcutta. Here we are in Calcutta. This is the temple room. We came to Calcutta. We were asked to go to Calcutta to make a Vyasa Puja book for Prabhupada, Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, at that time of year, in August. At that time, I took Diksha. And then Jean felt she was not ready. And after Calcutta, we all went to Delhi for another big program in Delhi. The Prabhupada was greeted by the mayor of Delhi. Again, Prabhupada was very famous immediately all over India because he was successful in his mission to spread Krishna consciousness in the Western world. This is another huge, huge program. These are the deities, Radha Gokul and Nanda, which were installed at that time. These deities are now at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. And interestingly enough, Jean became Vishaka Devi. She's the president now of the Bhaktivedanta Manor. This is Prabhupada's magic to convert atheists to theists, or from atheist to president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor. sometimes people would ask Prabhupada, can you show me some magic? And Prabhupada would refer to his devotees as, this is my magic. That's the most difficult thing. Some mystic yogis may be able to produce some dust or gold, but what use is that? But if you produce one Krishna conscious person, they can change hundreds and thousands of lives, as Prabhupada did. Here we are at Radha Damodar. After Delhi, Prabhupada brought us to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada gave us a tour of Vrindavan. Varsana, telling the story of Mother Yashoda looking for dirt in Krishna's mouth, and she saw the whole universe. Prabhupada tells that story with very wide eyes. And then bathing in the Yamuna. At first, we were all bathing, and Prabhupada didn't want to come in and join us, but finally he joined us. That's Dr. Kapoor, Adikeshava Prabhu, Prabhupada's godbrothers. They're very close. So in Vrindavan, we were married, and Vishaka took initiation at that time. So unfortunately, we have only one picture of our wedding, because we were the photographers. We had the camera. So Malati Devi, during the wedding, rushed up to Vishaka and grabbed her camera and said, "We got this one picture." Unfortunately, Prabhupada's not he's on the left-hand side, unseen in the photograph. He presided at the ceremony. And then we started traveling with Prabhupada full time, and Vishaka Devi taking pictures. This is Jaipur. Prabhupada was royally received in Jaipur by the Queen of Jaipur, Gayatri Devi. And again, a procession through the streets of Jaipur. And then we went to Mayapur. This is the Mayapur landscape. You can see the Lord Chaitanya's birth site temple in the far distance. The landscape has been completely transformed today. Due to Prabhupada's preaching. Again, in the early days, there were only a handful of Indians. I remember Prabhupada preaching in those early days to the Indian audience, urging them, demanding that they take up the process of Krishna consciousness and spread it all over the world. He was so forceful in his lectures. So we can see the result of that today, that the Indian people are becoming devotees all over the world. Prabhupada started that huge, I call it like an earthquake, a huge megaton earthquake or whatever. It created the tsunami that spread all over, flooded the whole world. This is the first time, this is the first Gorpanim festival. Prabhupada thought that was the only permanent structure at that time. Prabhupada would take us on morning walks. This is the Pandal. Prabhupada called all his godbrothers on Gorpanim Day to come and join him. Some came and some did not come. And Prabhupada did climb down into the pit to establish the Ananta Shesha, the foundation of the Temple of Understanding, Temple of Vedic Planetarium. Sorry. And on stage, I received Brahminical initiation, and also Vishaka Devi. This is in front of, again, thousands of people for Neem Day. And then Prabhupada ordered that mass prasadam distribution should go on. Nobody should go hungry within a 10-mile radius of the temple. That went on in a very, very big way. Then Prabhupada took us to Mumbai. Here we are in Hare Krishna land, which is also now transformed. And this is Guru Puja. This is Haridas Prabhu getting Diksha. Haridas Prabhu, he was a thief. He was in jail. And somehow he received the Back to Godhead magazine. On the back cover of the magazine, Prabhupada, there was a picture of Prabhupada. And he had a beautiful gold watch on. So when Haridas Prabhu saw that picture, he said, when I get out of jail, I'm going to find this man and steal his watch. So when he got out of jail, he went to find Prabhupada. He did find Prabhupada. Well, actually, he first came to the temple. He was very interested. We had our cameras. He was very interested in our cameras. So he spent some time at the temple, and then he went to meet, Prabhupada was coming. He went to meet Prabhupada. So he admitted to Prabhupada, I wanted to steal your watch. I'm very sorry. So Prabhupada, forgave him, and then took his watch off and gave it to Haridas. So happy ending. Every evening there would be prasadam distribution. Ramananda Prabhu one evening said, let me distribute prasadam, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no, I want to distribute. This is the groundbreaking ceremony for the temple in Juhu. At that time, we got a letter from the Karanda Prabhu of the BBT, and he wanted a film to be made on the movement. There was no movies at that time. So he asked us to come back and make our first film, The Hare Krishna People. The Prabhupada was the executive producer of that film. Executive producer means usually they're the financier for the film. So Prabhupada gave us $16,000 from the book fund to make this movie. So that was a lot of money in those days. Today, that's more than $100,000. So we made that film. Prabhupada was very happy. He said, make more films, make them the most popular films, and distribute them widely, and from the profits make more. We tried to do that over the years. This is the equipment we used at that time, very huge and bulky and noisy. So we had to have something called a blimp around the camera to keep it quiet. Prabhupada didn't like camera noise. This is the tape recorder that Vishaka Devi used. Very big and bulky also. This is our editing, hand-wound editor. It's very difficult to keep the right speed, 24 frames a second. But somehow or another, we made this movie called The Hare Krishna People. This is the end of our presentation. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you very much for being so attentive. Sorry for the rough start. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, do you, all these films, the photos that you've taken, are they available in a book, or are they available somewhere that
Yeah, we made about 8 or 9 documentaries, and Prabhupada saw 4 of them. The Hare Krishna People, Spiritual Frontier, the documentary on New Vrindavan, Brilliant as the Sun, which shows book production during that time, and Spark of Life. So those films and more films are on our YouTube channel. The name of the channel is Hare Krishna Film Classic. Hare Krishna Film Classics. And everything is there. Also, our latest film, Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all. That's also there in many different languages. All the 8 major Indian languages plus Russian. And on our website, there's over 30 languages available, including Chinese and Arabic. The whole world has access to see Prabhupada, especially in the Hare Krishna movie. We encourage you to share that movie as much as possible because it has a very deep emotional impact usually on people. But we released it in 2017, but still very, very important.
What about the still photos, these still photos that you presented today? These photos, are they in a book that we can purchase, like a book of photos that you?
No, they're not available. We can try to make them available sometime.
That'd be wonderful, yeah.
Actually, we're working on restoring all the films of Prabhupada into 4K quality. So there's little frames, movie frames, so we can make still photos from, as you saw. But after the restoration, the quality will be much better. So we can make try to make something. Yes.
Long time, like beginning and until now. So how does it feel, or what are your thoughts that you're being able to be given that kind of privilege of being there in the beginning and until now? And what are your most challenging experiences in following Srila Prabhupada? And what are your realizations to impart to us after all these years?
It was hard to hear because it was coming from here and it was coming. But Prabhu, can you? Oh, that's sorry.
So I said that we are so amazed that the Harvest movement started, and I would like to share with us your most important realization. And at the same time, what were your most challenging experiences following the Prabhupada, and how did you go to report the realization?
You know, Krishna consciousness is a long-term project. Prabhupada said many times it's gradual. So, and there'll be ups and downs. There'll be successes. There'll be failures. But the thing is, we should not be discouraged because we're in the kingdom of Maya. We're surrounded by so many distractions. So there'll be difficulty for most of us. It's a rare soul that can join Krishna consciousness and cruise through with a perfect record. That's rare. So don't become discouraged. Just hang in there for the long haul, and you'll be successful. If that desire is there to become Krishna conscious, desire is the only thing we have. As we desire, things manifest. Krishna fulfills those desires. There's a painting in the old Krishna book of the spiritual world above, the material world below, and in between there's a line. And on that line is the word desire. We have to be careful of what we desire. If we desire material, even if, as a devotee, if we desire material benediction, that will manifest. We have to be careful and not give up. Okay? Great. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yadubara Prabhuji ki.